Why spiritually awake people don't have many friends. Alan Watts. You know, it's a curious thing, isn't it? As you delve deeper into yourself, as you begin to peel back the layers and truly awaken to the vastness of your own being, you might notice a strange paradox unfolding. The more connected you feel to the universe, to your own inner truth, the more isolated your social life can sometimes become. You've felt that quiet ache, haven't you? That subtle, almost imperceptible shift where familiar faces start to feel a little less familiar, and once vibrant conversations now echo with a faint hollowness. It's not a failing on your part, nor a judgment against anyone else. It's simply a profound, yet often lonely byproduct of your own spiritual evolution. Today, we're going to gently uncover why this experience, this thinning of your social ties, is a common and understandable aspect of becoming more spiritually awake. Perhaps you found yourself sitting at a coffee shop, the low hum of chatter surrounding you, yet feeling utterly detached from the mundane concerns being exchanged. You might pick up snippets of conversations about the latest celebrity gossip, the rising cost of living, or someone's weekend plans. And while you can intellectually grasp the words, the emotional resonance, the shared investment just isn't there for you anymore. Or maybe you're at a gathering, watching friends laugh about something that used to captivate you, a shared past, a familiar complaint, a trivial worry, and now it just doesn't. You try to engage, to find that old spark, to bridge the growing gap, but it feels like you're speaking a different language, or perhaps a language that only you can hear. This isn't about superiority or judgment. It's a genuine, felt experience of misalignment. Your priorities have shifted. Your understanding of reality has expanded in ways that are difficult to articulate, even to yourself. What once filled your cup now leaves it feeling strangely empty, like trying to quench thirst with a mirage. You begin to question the default narratives, the collective anxieties, the endless pursuit of external validation that once shaped so much of your world. This internal transformation, this profound awakening, subtly yet dramatically alters your relationship with everything around you, including, and perhaps especially, your relationships with others. It's a journey many of us embark upon, often without fully realizing the extensive implications for our day-to-day lives. You start to see through illusions, to recognize the impermanence of things, to understand that true joy doesn't reside in acquiring more, but in simply being more. This newfound perspective, while incredibly liberating and enriching on a personal level, can also create a widening chasm between you and those who haven't yet begun to explore these depths. It's not that you've become better than anyone. It's that your inner compass now points towards different stars, guided by a different kind of light. You seek authenticity where you once tolerated superficiality. You crave depth where you once found comfort in the shallow end of interaction. You yearn for conversations that touch the soul rather than merely skim the surface of daily events. This isn't a call to abandon your past or condemn your old self, but rather an invitation to understand the natural, often challenging consequences of your growth. We'll delve into the subtle ways your changing inner landscape reshapes your outer world, exploring the unique challenges and unexpected gifts that come with this profound shift in perception. We'll look at how your definition of connection itself begins to evolve, moving beyond mere companionship to something more profound, and why sometimes having fewer friends can actually be a sign of deeper, more meaningful engagement with life itself. This isn't about finding fault. It's about finding clarity and compassion for your own unfolding journey, recognizing that this particular kind of loneliness is often a signpost, not a dead end. We're here to gently explore the landscape of this experience together, offering a fresh perspective on what it means to truly connect when your inner world has taken on new dimensions. As you continue to shed old skins, you might find your energetic sensitivity heightening, What once felt like harmless banter now registers as a subtle drain on your spirit. Imagine walking into a room filled with static electricity, a low hum that, while barely perceptible to some, sets your nerves on edge. Similarly, interactions centered on gossip, fear-mongering, or constant complaining can become profoundly exhausting. You're not judging these conversations. Rather, your internal system simply can no longer sustain itself within such frequencies for extended periods. This isn't a conscious choice to withdraw, but an intuitive self-preservation mechanism. Your being inherently seeks environments that nourish, not deplete. Consequently, the social gatherings that once offered a sense of belonging may now leave you feeling utterly spent, as if you've run a marathon just by listening. This subtle, energetic recalibration naturally leads to a more discerning approach to how and with whom you choose to spend your precious energy, quietly reshaping your social landscape. Furthermore, as your perception deepens, you become increasingly attuned to underlying truths, often seeing through the polite fictions and societal narratives that many find comforting. You might observe how fear drives consumerism, or how attachment to identity fuels conflict, even in seemingly benign discussions. When you speak from this place of deeper insight, even gently, it can inadvertently challenge the established comfort zones of others. Consider a situation where a friend is passionately discussing a political issue, entirely from a place of ingrained tribalism. Your perspective, perhaps seeing the shared humanity beneath the partisan divide, might not only feel out of place, but can even be perceived as unsettling. It's not that you intend to provoke, it's simply that your internal framework for understanding reality has expanded beyond the conventional boundaries. This can create a quiet tension, as your emergent wisdom unasked for can feel like a subtle mirror reflecting aspects of themselves others are not yet ready to examine. Hence, the very authenticity you embody can, paradoxically, become a barrier to superficial connection. Building on this shift, your very definition of what constitutes a friend or connection undergoes a profound metamorphosis. What once satisfied a need for companionship or shared history now feels insufficient if it lacks a certain resonance, an unspoken understanding, a shared vibrational frequency. You begin to yearn for relationships where you can bring your whole, emergent self without needing to censor your insights or diminish your light. The casual acquaintance, the friend from a bygone era with whom you now share only pleasantries, might naturally drift away, not out of malice, but because the foundational pillars of shared experience have eroded, replaced by differing internal landscapes. This isn't about discarding people. Rather, it's a natural pruning process, akin to a tree shedding leaves to conserve energy for new growth. You find yourself less interested in the quantity of your connections and profoundly more invested in their quality, seeking those rare souls who truly see you, who resonate with the expanded version of yourself you are becoming. The silence shared with such a person becomes more meaningful than 1,000 words exchanged with another. Another crucial layer to this experience is your growing comfort with silence. Where once a lull in conversation might have felt awkward, now it's often a welcome space for contemplation, for simply being. Consequently, the constant need for verbal filler, for the incessant chatter that often defines social interaction, can become grating. You might find yourself in a group perfectly content in your own quiet presence, while others scramble to fill every void with words. This difference in comfort levels, this disparity in how silence is perceived, creates another subtle barrier. It's not that you dislike talking, rather, you've come to appreciate the profound wisdom and connection that can exist without words. The superficiality of small talk, once a social lubricant, now feels like a cumbersome obstacle to genuine connection, leading you to gravitate towards deeper, more contemplative exchanges, even if they are fewer and farther between. This internal shift towards valuing stillness over noise inevitably impacts the ease with which you navigate conventional social settings. As your internal landscape expands, you also begin to liberate yourself from the subtle yet pervasive need for external validation. Think back to a time when you might have tailored your opinions or even your personality to fit into a particular social circle, seeking affirmation that you were indeed good enough, smart enough, or cool enough. This isn't a judgment, it's a common human experience. However, as you awaken, that deep-seated hunger for approval gradually diminishes. You realize your inherent worth isn't contingent upon someone else's perception or acceptance. This profound shift means you are no longer subconsciously driven to maintain friendships purely for the sake of feeling seen or validated. You become more comfortable in your own skin, less reliant on the mirror of another's gaze to confirm your existence. Consequently, you might find yourself less inclined to chase after connections that demand you dim your light or compromise your burgeoning authenticity, leading to a natural winnowing of those relationships that once served only to prop up an externalized sense of self. This journey also brings with it a profound re-evaluation of personal boundaries and self-worth. You start to recognize patterns in your relationships where perhaps you consistently gave more than you received, or allowed others to infringe upon your emotional space out of a misguided sense of loyalty or obligation. With a heightened awareness of your own energy and needs, you become far more adept at setting clear, respectful boundaries. Imagine a garden gate, once left wide open for anyone to wander through, now gently but firmly closed, with an understanding that only those who respect the sanctity of your space are invited in. This isn't about becoming rigid or unwelcoming. It's about honoring your own integrity. When you prioritize your well-being in this way, some relationships, particularly those built on an imbalanced dynamic, may naturally fall away. It's not a rejection of the other person, but rather an affirmation of your own intrinsic value, a quiet declaration that your peace is non-negotiable. Furthermore, your quest for shared experience transforms into a deeper yearning for shared consciousness or presence. Previously, you might have sought out friends primarily for common activities, attending concerts, playing sports, or simply commiserating over life's challenges. These shared external events created a sense of camaraderie. Yet as your inner world expands, you begin to crave a different kind of communion, a resonance of spirit, an ability to simply be together in a space of quiet understanding without the need for constant activity or chatter. Consider two people sitting on a park bench, not exchanging a single word, yet feeling profoundly connected by the shared appreciation of the rustling leaves or the distant sound of children playing. That kind of deep, unspoken attunement becomes the gold standard for connection. Many friendships, however, are not built on this foundation, and they may struggle to adapt to your evolving desire for a more profound, less performative interaction. This isn't to say you abandon all previous enjoyments, but the purpose behind your engagement shifts. You seek out those rare individuals who can meet you in that expansive, conscious space, recognizing that such profound kinship is often found in quality, not quantity. Moreover, as you cultivate a deeper relationship with your own inner guidance, the reliance on external advice or constant validation from peers lessens significantly. You develop a robust internal compass, learning to trust your intuition and make decisions from a place of genuine self-knowing. This alters the traditional give and take of many friendships, where a significant portion of interaction revolves around seeking or offering solutions to problems. When you no longer present every dilemma to your friends for their input, or when you find you've already found your own answers, the dynamic shifts. It's not that you dismiss their wisdom, rather you've simply become your own primary source of counsel. This newfound self-sufficiency, while empowering for you, can subtly change the perceived utility of certain friendships, especially those that thrived on a codependent exchange of advice or emotional support. You become a wellspring unto yourself, and while you still cherish companionship, the need for others to fill certain roles in your life diminishes. If this brought you clarity, stay with us. As your journey into awakened consciousness deepens, a subtle but significant shift occurs in your capacity for empathy and understanding. You begin to perceive the intricate web of conditioning that shapes every individual's reality, recognizing that each person is navigating their own unique set of fears, desires, and inherited patterns. This profound insight, while fostering immense compassion, can simultaneously make it challenging to engage in conversations rooted in blame, judgment, or narrow perspectives. You find yourself less able to participate in the casual criticism of others or to join in discussions that hinge on a rigid us versus them mentality. It's not a moral stance you're consciously adopting. Rather, your expanded awareness simply cannot comfortably inhabit those confined mental spaces. You might listen as a friend passionately condemns an entire group of people, and while you hear the words, your inner landscape is busy processing the underlying anxieties and unmet needs driving that condemnation, making it impossible to genuinely resonate with the superficial anger. This internal shift in how you process human behavior means that many conventional interactions, which rely on a certain level of shared ignorance or collective judgment, simply lose their appeal, leaving you feeling like an observer rather than a participant. Beyond this, you may discover a growing discomfort with the pervasive cultural emphasis on external achievement and constant striving. Whereas before, you might have bonded with others over career ambitions, financial goals, or the acquisition of material possessions. These pursuits now often register differently within you. Your understanding of fulfillment has shifted from external metrics to internal states of being. Consequently, conversations that revolve solely around getting ahead, comparing successes, or lamenting perceived failures can feel increasingly hollow. Imagine sitting with old acquaintances, listening to them detail their latest promotions or discuss luxury purchases. And while you offer polite congratulations, your own spirit quietly acknowledges the impermanence of such things and the true cost they often exact. This isn't about rejecting ambition altogether, but about discerning its deeper purpose and recognizing that authentic joy often arises from presence, contribution, and inner peace, rather than from relentless external accumulation. This divergent perspective naturally creates a subtle distance from those whose primary focus remains on the outward show, leading to fewer shared interests in the conventional sense. A related consequence emerges when you begin to shed the need to fix or advise others, even those you care deeply about. In earlier stages of your development, you might have felt compelled to offer solutions, to guide friends through their struggles, or to intervene in their choices. However, with awakening comes the profound realization that each individual is on their own sovereign path, and that true growth often arises from personal discovery, not external direction. This doesn't mean you become uncaring, quite the opposite. Your compassion deepens, but it transforms into a more spacious, less intrusive form of witness. Now, consider how this applies when a friend comes to you, recounting a familiar problem, expecting the same old advice or commiseration. Instead of jumping in with solutions, you might simply listen, holding space for their experience without judgment, or perhaps offering a gentle reflection that encourages their own inner wisdom to surface. This shift, while immensely beneficial for both your energy and their autonomy, can sometimes be perceived by others as a lack of engagement or even indifference, especially if they are accustomed to a more active, advice-giving role from you. This change in relational dynamic can lead to a natural recalibration of who remains in your closest circle, favoring those who appreciate the quiet power of presence over prescriptive guidance. Moreover, your relationship with time itself undergoes a significant transformation. The frantic pace of modern life, the constant rush from one appointment to the next, the perpetual feeling of being busy, these rhythms, once perhaps your own, start to feel increasingly dissonant. You cultivate a deeper appreciation for stillness, for unhurried moments, for the simple act of being rather than doing. This means you might be less inclined to pack your schedule with endless social engagements, or to participate in activities driven by a sense of obligation rather than genuine desire. Conversely, many of your existing friendships might be deeply intertwined with these fast-paced, commitment-laden patterns. When you begin to consciously slow down, to create more spaciousness in your life, it can inadvertently disrupt the established routines and expectations of those around you. You might decline invitations to events that once seemed essential, choosing instead a quiet evening of reflection or a walk in nature. This isn't a rejection of friendship, but rather an honoring of your newly discovered internal clock, a recognition that true connection doesn't require constant motion or scheduled interaction, but rather an alignment of spirit that can manifest beautifully even in periods of shared quietude. If this brought you clarity, stay with us. Reflecting on this journey so far, you might sense a profound reordering within your being. What we've explored isn't a collection of isolated events, but rather interconnected facets of a singular, profound transformation. Imagine a vast river, once flowing predictably within familiar banks, now carving a new, deeper channel through the landscape. The old tributaries, once vital, may find their waters receding, not because the river has ceased to flow, but because its very course has shifted, guided by an unseen force towards a grander ocean. This isn't a process of rejection, but one of natural divergence, where your own energetic currents seek new paths, new depths, and new forms of communion. This deepening understanding empowers you to release the subtle, often unconscious burden of external expectations, to shed the illusion that your inherent worth is intricately tied to the number of people in your immediate social circle. Instead, you are invited to embrace the profound truth that as you awaken and expand, you naturally become a more luminous beacon, subtly drawing to you those who are genuinely ready and willing to meet you in the radiant light of your authentic self. The quiet, often less traveled path you are walking is not one of ultimate isolation, but of profound self-discovery, leading you towards a deeper, more expansive, and ultimately more truthful form of connection with life itself. It is a journey into the heart of what it means to truly belong, not just to a group, but to the vast, interconnected dance of existence. If this brought you clarity,